Welcome to Permission to Kick Ass, the show that gives you a virtual seat at the bar for the real conversations that happen between entrepreneurs. I'm interviewing all kinds of business owners, from those just a few years into freelancing to CEOs helming 9-figure companies. If you've ever worried that everyone else just seems to get it and you're missing something or messing things up, this show is for you. I'm your host, Angie Coley, and let's get to it. Hey, and welcome back to Permission to Kick Ass. With me today is my good friend, Reese Spykerman. Say hi.
Hi.
We've already bantered for probably almost 15 minutes just before the recording, talking, gabbing, catching up. I wrote down in my notes that I had to share the fact that I was having a problem with my mic erection because for some reason I've got this on a boom arm here in front of me for anybody watching the video, and it just keeps leaning over. So if you hear any weird shit throughout this, just assume that my microphone fell over and is tired of life. I don't know.
It lost its erection. And my comment back to you was, this really should be the title of this podcast.
My microphone lost its erection.
Yeah.
It lost its will to live, apparently.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about you, about what you do.
Oh my God, I love the open-ended questions so much.
Yeah.
Can you hear the dripping sarcasm in my voice? So it's like, tell us about you.
Mm-hmm. Give us the life story.
When I was 2, this happened. And when I was 10, this happened. We're not going to go down that.
Well, I've had people say, so at the beginning I was born and I was like, oh shit, we're going there. Yeah. So trust me, I've heard it by now. Whatever you got, bring it on.
Well, this is a business podcast, so I'm gonna funnel it that way. I'm Reese, and I mean, you already know that. You heard my name. I was a business owner for the past almost 20 years. After college, I had 1 or 2 jobs, I think. Got tired of that. Didn't like working for people. Opened up my own shop. Started first out way back in the heyday of when blogs were getting hot. And you could be a blogger and then get a book out of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So I started doing blogs for some people who were movers and shakers at that time. It evolved to doing blog design. Okay. It mm-hmm. evolved to doing that for small businesses. And then that evolved to medium-sized, corporate, international. And I kept doing this. And I, at some point, hated the web development side of things. So I made some pivots and I started doing just design. And then that evolved into just kind of being a consultant. And there was sometime around 2015 or 16, I want to say, I saw some writing on the wall, intuitively about myself, where my business was going, and that my income would kind of be capped doing what I was doing. And it was at that point I wanted to get into consulting. And I just dove into the pool of becoming an e-commerce optimization consultant. I knew I had the skill set, just from my years of doing what I was doing, but I also had so much imposter syndrome at that time. I'd never been in e-commerce. I hadn't done website optimization, even though I'd built tons of them. I just dove into the pool. And a few years after that, so I want to say 2020, I got away from one-on-one client work and I started a program, as many of us in this realm do, where it was a 6-month program for women with product-based businesses who were in e-commerce. And it was basically marketing 101 for them from A to Z, everything from what they need to do to optimize their websites to their copy. I had started getting back into copywriting at this time. And I love that so much. I love that program. I ran it for 3 rounds, so about 1.5 years, 6 months at a time. And then I ran into a volume cap. In other words, I just could not attract enough leads. The women I were getting in were amazing, but I was really struggling with the whole lead funnel method of getting people in. It's, I think there's a lot of people out there that make it look like it's quite easy. And for some people it can be.
Yeah.
I think if you had started doing it years and years ago, that's a different story. But I also am not the kind of person where I'm peppy, Pollyanna, charismatic. There's a certain type that can attract that. And that's not me. And it's okay. But there's not enough leads. There aren't enough people who are attracted to this to justify it. So I shut the program down, even though I loved the teaching. I loved what I was doing. I kept doing private client work for about a year after. And one of the clients that I'd been working with for a couple years approached me over this past summer. So this is 2020, like late 2023, we're talking, and asked me if I would be interested in coming in at a full-time employed role. And until I had kind of been batting around in my head for a while, do I go get a job? I was burned out. I was burned out on trying to find clients, on doing everything myself, on the hustle. And so it kind of came at a time where I think my brain was ready for it. And I knew them. I trusted them. I knew them. I negotiated what I needed to make it work for me, everything from remote to the number of hours that I would work. And I've been in that job now for 4 months. It's absolutely kicking my ass. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just been trial by fire. And I'm the director of marketing for this company that's like expanding rapidly into 20 new locations in the next year. And here I am. This is my story in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, I've been taking notes. I don't actually ever show this on the recording, but like I always have my little Remarkable tablet here that I'm taking notes on. And I actually put freaking numbers on all of the transitions and the pivots that I was writing down here. I counted 8 of them total over the course of this. And I say that to say this, that often I see this stalling people out, that they feel like they have to start with the end goal in mind and they have to have the perfect plan before they ever get going. And look at Reese's evolution here, from blogs when those were popular, to doing the web development and design, to burning out on the web development and focusing on design, from pivoting there to, I had to write it all down, to consulting, then switching industries to something that she didn't know at all and had massive imposter syndrome in, e-com, then consulting with those, then creating a course, then abandoning the course. Like, abandon is not the right word, but I know that you know what I mean there. I love that you shared that entire journey, because I think that there's a lot of insecurity or maybe self-judgment or something that holds people back when they think, I have to pick this thing and I have to get it right. But I always tell them, for now is not forever. And by the same token, exactly what you said, because you choose to go back into a job and you made sure it was the right opportunity for you, that doesn't make you a failure or like you didn't succeed for 20 fucking years at this thing through all of its evolutions, because you decided to do something different for now. And so, like, what I want everybody to get out of all of this rambling here is that it's okay to do you. You get to burn out on things or lose interest in things and change directions. You get to decide, you know what, I'm tired of prospecting and running the whole show. And for right now, I'm going to go use these entrepreneurial skills to help other business owners solve their problems. We call that Intrepreneurship, which Angie is also a big fan of, because I just see entrepreneurs as doers. They're people that know how to solve problems. On and on until the day we fucking die, right? Life is a series of problems. Every problem you solve is going to create another problem. I don't know where I was going with any of that, but we already set ourselves up before this recording to know that it's going to be meandering and ADHD as fuck and beautiful.
It is. So what I love about what you said, I want to extract something here, because there's wordplay that I just cannot help but do. Your podcast is permission to kick ass. But I think what we're also talking about here is permission to pivot, permission to not know what the fuck you're doing and do it anyway, and permission to not be perfect when you go about it. Like, this is really like what we were talking about here, because you say, like, you know, entrepreneurs, they get caught in their head and should I and shouldn't I? It's the biggest thing I want you to hear from me and from Angie right now is about, we're giving you permission to like, do you. This is your permission slip.
Absolutely. And we all fall into this trap. I'm somebody that talks about this damn near 24/7 in every circle that I'm in. I've got a whole show dedicated to this. And even I get caught up in these traps. And that's exactly why I created this show. I wanted to have something that was the show that I needed when I got to in my head. And this, you need to meet my best friend. You would get along with them very well. But I had an instance where a couple weeks ago, and this has been like 6 months in the making. I used to give it full context. We have to go back to when I was working for my friend's agency. I was the copy chief and I was the account manager. And my favorite piece of this was how every month we could plan out the entirety of our clients' email promotion calendar in one half-hour to hour-long meeting. And that just blew people's minds. Like, we could not only do that, we could also basically write 80 to 90% of the emails within that time. And I'm not talking about speed writing or anything. I'm talking about asking the right questions to get the client to tell me the story, which I'm then going to go rip from the transcript and turn into an email with the best practices and the calls to action and linking it to the right product and all of that. But like, working smarter instead of harder. And I've been telling various friends, this is so interesting to me because I can't sell like a brainstorming thing. How do I package this? I feel like there's something to the fact that we could not only plan out, but pretty much get your email marketing done in just an hour or two a month. And like, how much easier would that make your life? So it finally evolved to the point where I think just 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was having a meeting with somebody. I hashed out some details. I wrote up in a Google Doc, here's what it is. Here's what it does. Here's who it's for. Here's how it works. Here's what it costs. Like, just super plain English. And I started talking to people about it and said, I'm trying this new thing out. I don't know how this offer is going to go, but I'm really interested in it. And so, I'm just talking to select people that I think would be really good for this program. And I want your input on it, blah, blah, blah. Talk about the easiest fucking sales I have ever made in my life. I worked on something that was exciting to me. I talked to people that I thought would be excited about it too. I didn't go build a whole fucking funnel and all of the Facebook ads to drive people to it, because I don't know how it's going to go. I only have in my imagination, I have this hypothesis that maybe I could do that with 10, maybe a max of 20 people per month, because that's a lot of phone calls, right? To plan all of that stuff out. That's a lot of creative energy. I don't know how it's going to go. Maybe I could handle 40 with a good admin or something, who knows? But it's all an experiment right now. And I just find it funny that, like, of all of the programs I've tried to create as an entrepreneur, I've done workshops, I've done courses, I've done consulting and all those things. That was the easiest fucking sale I've ever made. Just like, here's what it is. This is a Google Doc. Tell me if you like it.
Yeah, it reminds me of, in a micro way, when I was doing my business, there would sometimes be a social media post that I would labor over for hours with the design and the caption. And then I would just get in fuck it mode and put up something like, God, I got to put something up. And the thing that I just put up where it was like, I don't even know about this, everyone would be like, hello. And it's such a mind fuck when you invest all this time in a thing and it doesn't have as much resonance or success or whatever you want to say as a thing that you just kind of are like, I'm flopping this up here, right? Yeah. And one of the things I think I got out of what you were saying reminds me of a friend of mine, one of my best friends, who is still in the entrepreneurial realm, and she's struggling with some pivoting in her business. And she has, one of the things that she will come talk to me about is like, well, this person's doing it this way, but I don't want to do it that way. And it's not that she feels, she's a very, she has a lot of agency. She's a very independent woman, but I still catch her at times going through this, like, this is not how it's done. So I'm not sure if it's going to work. And I say to her, we get to write the rules. And just because someone built a funnel or whatever mechanism we're talking about, or technique a certain way, doesn't mean we have to do it that way, because there had to be an originator of those methodologies. Why can't we be an originator of our own methodologies? Maybe other people will end up using them someday, but that's not the point. The point is, again, make your own damn rules about everything from the methodologies in your business, what you sell, how you sell it, who you sell it to. Stop looking at everyone else and start getting on a playground and play.
Oh, yes. Play. Yes. When done right, the work can be the adult version of play. Like, you don't have to recreate the employee game. And if you've done that with your business, I think, welcome to business. We've all done that, because when you first started out, unless you grow up in an entrepreneurial environment, the only filter that you have to look at these problems is an employee filter, right? You think, how much do I charge per hour? How many hours do I need to work per week? Blah, blah, like, right? You just go down what you know. Then you learn to think differently when you start to meet different people who reflects this awesomeness back at you. Like, there were two awesome things that you said there that I wanted to call attention to. One was the tactics, right? How other people do things, the tactics and strategies. And I was in an interesting discussion in a group the other day about this, where somebody was talking about saturation. And I come from a background people have heard me talk about before, it's copywriting, but even within copywriting, there's the brand, the more like Geico Gecko, the gimmicky kinds of things like national ads and Super Bowl commercials, more awareness campaigns. And there's direct response, which is what I do, which is basically sales, like sales messaging. And somebody was talking about like saturation, and I had to remind them what saturation is within our little niche of a niche in direct response is completely different from what saturation is in the broader business market. And I say this because like we get tired of seeing certain tactics, but people in different industries have never seen these or heard these before. And why this is relevant to the conversation, it's like, try it if it sounds interesting to you. There's no rule, exactly like you said, there's no rule out there that says because it worked for this person, I now have to try this. I should be trying this. I should be validating. You don't have to do shit. You don't. You don't. And the other thing that I wanted to say, like, we're just going to get good and ranty. So it was funny that you talked about not knowing what's going to resonate and creating content. And I talk about this a lot. Like authority content is how you get out there and you get known. But you never know what's actually going to work. So consistency is the name of the game. And you may never hear from the people who are being impacted by your work. It's not necessarily going to go viral. It's not going to get all the likes. It's not going to get all the comments. But, I've told this story a couple times by now. You never know who's watching. And a while back when I said I was going to do this 40 by 40, I'm going to get on 40 podcasts by the time I turn 40, somebody who'd been following me for years, who I didn't know existed, reached out to me and said, I have a podcast. Will you come on my show? I'm a big fan. And sent me a lovely message about like, I promise this is not a creepy stalker thing. I wrote a blog post about you way back in the day, the first time I heard you on a podcast, because there was something that you said that really just changed things for me. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And that happened again this week. I feel like I'm just ranting at this point, but I know you'll appreciate this. I had a situation last week. I'm also launching a book by the time I turn 40. That was my big goal this year. 40 podcasts, launch a book. I just last week, as we're recording this in October. By the time it comes out, it's going to be May. Your birthday. Releases on your birthday. So the book will have been out. But just last week, with a month to go until this book launches on December 1st, my birthday, I had to pull from the publisher and completely move everything over to Amazon. And in a moment of frustration, I wrote, this is why I'm doing all of this. Like, I could have taken the self-judgment route of this is not going the way I wanted. I owed people answers by now. People are bugging me for the pre-sale link. I need to get something out there. But no, when I talked to, and here's what happened in a nutshell. I talked to the publisher about the print proof that I got, which over 50% of the pages were super blurry. And I didn't like that. It was like double printed and it was distracting.
Oh, yeah.
And I sent them probably a dozen pictures of this happening. And at first I thought maybe my phone camera was compensating for it. But then when I looked at the detailed pictures, I'm like, you can see the ridges of my fingertips next to this blurry ass type. So they should have been able to see what was going. What I got was a super condescending message of basically like, well, it's the thinness of the paper and that's the way it works. And you're just going to have to decide what you can live with and let like,
oh my God, hold me back.
Oh, it was such bullshit. And I actually like copied and pasted the entire email thread in that post that I did and went, well, so this is why with, just over a month to go until I launch this thing, I am completely pulling all of the publications and the pre-sale links that I had with this other company that I spent months working on. And I'm moving it all over to Amazon, going to sell my soul to the giant because they make it easy. And get this, I just finished uploading everything yesterday. Again, it's the end of October as we're recording it. I ordered 2 print proofs from Amazon yesterday that will get here tomorrow that cost me $16. The print proof that I ordered from the other distributor took about a week and a half for them to generate, and it was $30. So like, if you're not going to at least compete on Amazon's level, maybe don't be a fucking dick about it. I know I'm leaving a lot out. Go to LinkedIn. You'll find the post where I said I think it's called something like my honest thoughts on self-publishing. And it has that whole interaction back and forth there. But where am I going with this? I'm going with, look, people are going to reach out to you in your business too, and they're going to be upset about things. Don't make assumptions. Care about them and their result. Understand that the effort they're going through in just reaching out to you and trying to find a solution. And maybe don't fucking condescend, because I guarantee you this person who was telling me, he told me it was bleed through, or she, I don't know. And I was like, I worked in print for a long time. I've seen proofs of catalogs and postcards and weekly circular ads and all kinds of shit. That's not bleed through, my friend. But thanks.
Oh my, okay. I got a couple things. We got to talk about condescending for a minute.
Yes.
So I would imagine almost anyone in your audience who's listening are going to be more of the bent like you and me, rather than the condescending asshole bent, because they just are going to listen to a podcast like this. But the people who are listening, it is easy to become intimidated or believe those sorts of people because of how they carry themselves. And if you are still working on some mindset things and stuff, it can be very easy to kind of kowtow to them. And I had a similar story recently, and like I have to kind of couch a lot of this in confidentiality, but there was a meeting where someone was kind of coming in the ivory tower situation. And I love this so much. Said, I noticed that, you're sending your landing pages, you're sending your ads to a landing page that's off the site. And the type of business I'm in has a lot of regulatory issues on it. Okay. And so part of why we do that is because if we sent it to the site, we would never get approval for some of the other products that are on our main brand website. And so we explain this to this person. And he goes, well, when I worked for an e-commerce company, and his eyes get really big, like he's coming with his big smackdown. Would you believe we were even able to send to a brand website for vaccines for pets? And I'm like, oh, honey, you're gotcha. And someone else on my team, because I'm just like sitting here like, oh boy, who's going to tell him? Goes, I'm pretty sure the regulations for human products are not the same as the ones for animals.
Yeah.
So it's similar to your story with the print. That's what reminded me of it. But I'm telling like in this scenario, this person was just coming like, they've got all this experience, this pedigree, right? Pedigree from their degrees, from the big corporate names they've worked with. And it's like, you could have heard a penny drop in the room and you don't know everything.
Yeah.
But another thing I want to talk about that you brought up, you never know who is out there watching you, listening, whatever it is. I've had that happen when in my business so many different times. And I want to like put a logical spin on this for people to help them understand.
Yeah.
Often I'm one of the quiet ones. Like you wouldn't know it from the way I'm animated on this podcast right now, but I'm a very introverted, quiet person. And I'm a busy person too. And so I'm not that extrovert who wants to always engage and reach out and email and be bubbly on social. That doesn't mean I'm not watching you.
Yes.
And it might very well damn mean there's a lot of us who, even if we aren't quiet, we have so much going on in our life that we don't have the time for that kind of engagement and interactivity until and when there's a like strike while the iron's hot sort of thing, like this person did, inviting you on their podcast. And so if you feel like your stuff isn't getting resonance, I encourage you, and it's so hard to do this, but like vanity metrics are basically like being in high school. You're like trying to get the fucking cheerleader and the homecoming king to like you. For what reason? Like really, for what reason? Whereas there's the nerd in the back who's going to go and make like an $8 billion gazillion company in 20 years. And he might remember you because you were kind to him and like you didn't give a shit about what people thought about you. He's not going to go and be liking your posts. He's not going to be going and propping you up, but someday he or she might remember you. So don't get caught in the resonance that's external that you think you can like measure and see. Understand, you may not always know it. You may not get reflection back, but you might have someone come to your door like they have like 3 years down the pipe and say, that thing you did 3 years ago that you put out, that you wrote, it changed my life. And I've had that happen more times than I can count. And I promise everyone listening, keep putting your stuff out there. It will touch people. It will move people. They may not speak up today, but someday you will start to get back from people that you do have resonance. And if you can do that for just one person, if you can just change one life, for me,
Mhm.
that was as meaningful, if not more than any money I was making.
Oh, yeah. And I think that I love that you're bringing that up, because a lot of us have that pressure, especially if we want to do some good in the world, or we're rebelling against, shitty stuff that's happened in a corporate life. And we're like, no, I'm going to make a positive impact, right? It's real tempting to fall into that trap of, well, how big can I make this? Could I have an Elon Musk impact? Could I be like a world changer? And look, you're a world changer if you impact one life, exactly like Reese said, because the impact of one life is potentially exponential in ways that you can't possibly predict. One person may talk to 20 more people, and each one of those people talks to 20 more people. And suddenly that one person that you helped with that one blog post that got no response is out there in the world doing immeasurable good for you, your name, and your reputation. And people are talking about it. You're just not aware of it. So it feels like, oh, I only helped one person. I had to keep reminding myself, because I worked on that book for 5 years. And was like, but it needs to be my magnum opus. It needs to be like debut author. Ah! So I actually wrote in there, I think in the very intro, if this helps one person, I consider this a success, like a raging. If I sell one copy and I help one person, will I be disappointed I didn't hit the bestseller? Yes, obviously. But the book will have done what I wrote it to do, help one person do business a little bit better.
So much, yes. When I think back in my career, the moments that I remember the most are when I, for example, would have a woman in that program I was telling you about, really ready to close shop in her business, not knowing what to do, and having so many confidence and self-esteem issues on a personal and career level. And by the time 6 months later comes down the pipe, she's transformed. The way she shows up in her business is transformed, but the way she felt about herself, that's the stuff I remember. And I have a recommendation for you and for your listeners related to your book. She said,
oh, lay it on me.
Like, worked on it for 5 years. And the minute you said that, I'm like, oh, I watched a movie the other day, life-changing movie. It's called Tick, Tick, Boom. Have you heard of this?
I've heard of it, but I haven't had a chance to watch it. I'm writing it down.
Okay. So it is, I'm not going to give away the farm, but it's about the man who ultimately would write the musical Rent. But before that made, its huge Broadway debut, and it was I've never seen Rent, but it was, from what I understand, very changing for Broadway. It was a very different way of doing a musical. He had 2 or 3 he wrote that he had worked on one for 8 years. And he had a workshop for it, and people were like, okay, sweetie, get ready. You need to write the next one, because this one's not going to have resonance out there in the world. There's no resonance world. And it was beautiful. And the music, like, I have chills right now thinking about this movie and how it touched me, because here's someone who believed so much in what he was doing, and he worked on it for 8 years. And this big moment comes and they tell him, you need to go and write something else new. But he had to do that to get to the next one, to finally get to Rent.
Yes.
And if he had given up after that workshop, we would not have today Rent. I would not be sitting here telling you about this movie that had me in tears, that has heart that I have not seen in a movie in years.
Yeah.
If he had stopped after that workshop, where they said, no.
That's what I love about creativity. It's like, I think all of us have faced that moment. I know you're on the design side, I'm on the writing side, but I'm sure that you've faced this moment where it was like, the idea isn't working and I don't have anything else. And oh shit, now I'm scared. Like, I don't have anything else. Am I ever going to have any good ideas ever again? Like, is that it? Was that the last it? But something always clicks into place in that moment of desperation that takes you to the very next level. That, exactly like you said, that first one had to land with a thud to get us to the level of Rent, for that idea to be surfaced, right? Like,
yeah,
the failing is part of the winning. We got to learn to embrace that.
Well, and that's exactly it. Not only on a real, like, sort of tactical level, he got feedback, say, from the marketplace about would or would not work. But on a more, like, personal transformative level, one of the things that the movie shows is, after that moment, he's exactly what you described. Like, what do I do? I've been working on this. I don't even know what my ideas are. And he goes and he talks with a friend of his, and I'm not going to give away too much here, but the friend reveals something going on in his life that brings this man to his knees.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, he realized that what he needed to write about was what he knew, like the stories of just like the human stories of the people he knew. And that light bulb shift would have never happened if he hadn't gone through writing about what he thought he wanted to write about. But then, he almost had to go back to the drawing board and simplify. And then the more he simplified and the more he did that, the more he actually found things that have resonance. But he had to have that moment of bringing him to his knees, both about his project and the news he got from his friend. And that unlocked everything that happened after. And it's like, when you hear something like this, God, I hope people who are listening to this, like, bookmark this episode for those times when they're feeling down, when they're brought to their knees, when they're told no, they don't get the job, they don't get the client, their program doesn't sell like they want it to. Breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And like, be receptive to this being exactly where you need to be in this moment in time for where you are going later.
Mm-hmm. What if it was working for you?
Everything that happens to me is for me. It is
Mm-hmm.
for me. Everything.
Amen. Amen. And I love that you brought up simplification, because I've told this story before too, but I suffered from that when I went through my first screenwriting class. I was operating under this delusion, and I'm going to call it for what it was, a delusion. Maybe you share this, and this is no judgment, but that to create something great, I had to create something that's never been seen before. I have to be this world builder and this world-class imagination and all kinds of stuff. And so every script that I turned in, I'll call a spade a spade. It was overwritten within an inch of its life. It was so fucking complicated and so grandiose and so wrapped up in what I thought it had to be. And then my screenwriting professor said, look, you can't make this shit up. It's happening around you. The world is an infinitely fascinating place if you just open your eyes and your ears and listen and watch become a student of the universe and the world around you. And you would be shocked what kinds of stories you can come up with by just being a good observer and somebody who asks questions and watches, like observes. And it just so happens that and all of my scripts to that point, my assignments, we always read them out loud as a group. And mine, the air got sucked out of the room. They were landing so much with a thud every time I wrote them. And I was getting really disheartened. I was like, I was a good writer and everybody hates that I write. Maybe I don't have it in me, or maybe I'm just like a dialogue specialist, because I was always really good at voice. Hello, copywriting. But then she said that, and the next week we had a comedy assignment. And it just so happened that a whole bunch of people had told me grandma stories that week. Like, my grandma takes her medicine every day at 5. And by medicine, I mean a shot of Jack Daniels religiously. She never misses it. And another one was like, my grandma just discovered the wonderful world of online dating, but she only goes out with guys named Jim. That's pretty weird. And then there was another one that had bought like an at-home facelift kit. And again, if this is you, I'm not making fun of you or anything like that,
No,
but I just thought, right. Yeah, like I could combine this at-home facelift kit, taking your Jack Daniels medicine every day at 5, only dating men named Jim. I think there was another weird thing too. And I combined all of those traits into one supremely weird and interesting grandma. And they were rolling when we read this script out loud. Like, how did you come up with it? And that was when it finally clicked. I didn't. Like, I just knew how to take the reality and shape it into what I wanted to see. But I had to have somebody point that out to me after trying and failing over and over and doubting myself and wondering if I was really up to what I was trying to do and if I would ever figure it out, right?
Okay. This is so good. So I'm going to use this as a springboard for like sort of a copy tactical tip for people.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because I love how you bring up a story and like, God, I have such a parallel in my own life. So literally yesterday, I was talking with my digital ads team. We had a campaign that we ran that we were looking at our competitors. They were doing everything that was trendy and shiny and catchy and like over the top marketing, right? Like all that catchy shit that's out there that everyone else is doing. And I said to my team, we need to zag where they're zigging. And we got back to how are men talking about this particular service that we need to market. Mm-hmm. And I let one of the guys on the ads team talk about his own experience with this particular problem. And I said, this is our ad copy. Our ad copy is you telling your story as a man, as a dad, and how, you know, you're struggling with energy and making this work in your life. And my point is, it's exactly like what you were saying about your screenplay. I mean, you basically came up with the Golden Girls. Yep. And you did it by just listening to how do people really talk. And I think a lot of marketers get caught up in how they think they should sound, how they think people should talk, what they think people want to hear. No, go listen to what people are saying and spit it right back out in them using their exact words. That is resonant copy, positioning, copy, and content, whatever. That's the stuff that I have always found working in my own career, for my clients, for my own stuff. It's working now in the job I'm in. Do that.
Yes. You don't have to be the like grandiose, over the top world builder with completely new original ideas that have never been heard before. If you are a good observer of life around you, if you know instinctively, ooh, that's really good. Ooh, that's really interesting. Tell me more about that. Like, you have the skill to draw out the things that people really connect with on a human level. Then exactly, I think you hit the nail on the head. They think that this has to be the thing, that it has to be a certain way. They're overthinking it to an extent of like, how do I reverse engineer how to meet this person? And I get it. We all have to learn to think that way as business owners. Like, how do I reverse engineer the distance between me and the person that I really want to help at the end? Because that's how I do business. The person that I want to help, not the person that I'm trying to sell to. There's a completely different energy there if you look at it. And so, yeah, you have to be able to think about how to build that bridge between you and them, but it starts by listening to them instead of sitting alone in your bubble trying to figure out what they think. Just fucking ask them. Somebody's going to be honest with you and be like, look, cards on the table. This sucks. This sucks. This is my frustration with the industry. I've been burned by the last 5 people that I worked with. I hoped for this and I got that. All of that is marketing copy. All of that is positioning for you to learn how to be better and to differentiate yourself from others. And the funny thing is, like, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, okay, well, cool. I've listened to people's bad experiences and I'm going to build this differently. So I'm going to show them I understand them by talking about all of the shitty things that other service providers do. Don't do that. Don't do that. Not only is it kind of a cheap shot at the competition, but you never know when they're going to pivot. You never know. And I just think it's just weak positioning in general to harp on somebody else's weaknesses instead of standing on your own strengths. That was a rant that I didn't anticipate coming out today, but there you go. Stand on your own strengths, not what somebody else is doing wrong. And you're going to build a hell of a lot stronger business.
And not only that, yeah, amen, but you also raise fucking objections when you do that. When you start saying like X, Y, and D does things this way, you might think that you're talking about your competition, but you might be actually bringing in objections about the entire thing you're trying to sell, no matter who's selling it, that were not even thinking about till you raised it to them. You do not need to bring this stuff up to them.
Yeah, because again, you don't know what somebody else is thinking. Maybe they came to you full of positivity and energy and enthusiasm to get this thing done, and then you start talking about everything that's wrong with all the competitors, and they go, "Oh, well, shit, I didn't know about that." Doing this. Yeah. Do you do that too? Like, that wasn't even a thing that I knew was happening in the industry, and you're the one that introduced the doubt into their mind. This is why we stand on our strengths. Answer objections as they come. Don't poke at other people.
Oh my God. Quote, like turn it into a t-shirt. There's several t-shirts in this episode today.
There are a lot of t-shirts.
I think the most important t-shirt though, that we have not gotten to, like before this whole shindig ends, is you and me both are like general menaces to polite society. Yes. I would like a t-shirt that says general menace to polite society.
Amen. Oh gosh, that's such a great point to wrap up on. I was laughing. So anybody that's been through my podcast process knows that I have like this questionnaire, and I don't necessarily ask all of the questions, but I built that in to help people prepare, especially if they're not as comfortable with this casual conversation format. Some people, like, I can wing it with the best of them, but a lot of people can't. So I have this questionnaire that people fill out, and I was reading the questionnaire before the show, and I told Reese, we got to work in this thing that you said that I thought was fucking brilliant. which was I'm a general menace to polite society. That needs to happen somewhere. And Reese so expertly brought it back in right at the end, coming in clutch. And I just feel that in my soul. Like, yes, I'm here to fuck shit up. I'm here to make people uncomfortable with who I am. And, thereby doing the Marianne Williamson thing, shine your light and give other people permission to shine their lights too. Yes. Permission to kick ass in full effect.
Permission for everything. And also, like, this is why I love you. Like, I don't do the podcast circuit really anymore. I don't need to with my business, but I came on here to spend time with you because of you being a general menace to polite society, just like me. Like, you don't give a fuck, and neither do I. And we people who don't give a fuck need to find others who don't give a fuck.
Yes, we're raising the don't give a fuck army. Love it.
Oh, there's another book in you right there, girl.
Yeah.
Is that not a book title?
Yeah, the don't give a fuck army. Yeah. Hell yeah. I like this. Yeah. Ooh, I like this. So many ideas. Okay, before I start us off on hour 2 of conversations, because I could keep going forever with you, please tell us a little bit more about how to keep in touch with you, how to learn more about you, because I have a feeling everybody's going to want to be your friend after this episode.
I don't want more friends.
You know?
Okay. Well, so
I was the last one. I got in under the deadline.
You did. Well, I think like even my Instagram's locked down. I don't want more friends. You could try to find me on Instagram, and if you don't look like you're like OnlyFans or something, I'd probably say yes. So that's Reese Spykerman at Instagram. So ReeseSpykerman. You can also find me. I fucking hate LinkedIn, but go find me over there if you want. Is there, what do people do these days? I don't even know where people exist.
Usually LinkedIn, usually Instagram.
You can send me an email. I'm still sending an email. You can send an email to support@designbyreese.com. If you go to that website and you try to like load it, it won't work. I had a whole scamming phishing problem happen, so I shut down my site, but the email is still working. So if you want to like reach out and say, hey, that way, I actually do still like people and would like friends. So I don't bite. Say hello.
The bark is tougher than the bite. I had a chance to meet and really get to know Reese in Florida earlier this year at an event. And like, we didn't set out to meet each other. We were introduced by a mutual friend. Thank you for introducing me and Reese. And just hit it off really, really well. And I'm so excited that the timing of this comes out on your birthday. It's so
amazing.
synchronous.
Oh my God, I'm a lucky girl. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you.
This has been like the conversation of the last 6 months for me. This has been amazing.
That's all for now. If you want to keep that kick-ass energy high, please take a minute to share this episode with someone that might need a high-octane dose of you can do it. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the Permission to Kick-Ass podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you stream your podcasts. I'm your host, Angie Coley, and I'm here rooting for you. Thanks for listening, and let's go kick some ass.